we're late into 2024, but in January of 2024, you introduced a word that you said, this needs to be our mantra for the year and beyond, right? The word is?
Intentional.
What does that have to do with the Lessons in Leadership mini seminar we're about to undertake?
It has everything to do not only with the mini seminar, but just how I've been approaching my life, how I've been approaching work, how I've been approaching everything that we do together. And it's the balance of making sure that what we're doing, I guess it started about a year or two ago when I started or coined the phrase, and I'm sure I didn't invent it, but let's make sure that we're focusing on impact over activity. There were certain times that I just felt like we were spinning a whole bunch of plates in the air, not a lot of impact, a lot of activity for what? And now that I'm getting older, wiser, you and I have learned and evolved and pivoted over the years. For going into this year, I'm not one for New Year's resolutions, but I am one for reflection. And when I reflected back, I felt like I wasn't being intentional enough about so many things in my life. So that's where it came from.
Is that why you intentionally ask me for a raise every year?
Yes, it is about that time. So it's funny that you were to bring that up and that Elvin brought it up. There's something in the planets today. So
the only reason she wanted to do this segment is she wants to intentionally make more money. No. So put this up. This is intentional leadership and communication. Let's start with this. First bullet point, impact over activity. All right, you see it on the screen. Sylvester on the back end, great, our terrific editor will put the bullets up. But let's talk about impact over activity. Here's the deal. I don't like that we have so much activity that has no purpose, as Mary was just talking about. Why do we have 10 meetings in a day? Why, first of all, is the meeting being held? And meetings are just one example of activity over impact. Don't do it unless you have impact. Why are we doing so many programs? Well, just because we want to be busy and justify that we're getting paid. Translation, it isn't more things we do. I have 12 items on my list who cares? The question is impact. That's a totally different question, and we need to be more intentional, Mary, as you've said, in what we're doing. And that takes strategic thinking and actually, dare I say, thinking. Go ahead real quick before we move to the second one.
Yeah, and when it comes to that impact over activity, it's just doing more doesn't mean that you're doing the right things. So take a look at your to-do list. There's probably things on there that have been on there forever. You keep pushing them back. Have an honest conversation with yourself. Have an honest conversation with your leader, your manager, your team. And even though it was something that you may have agreed that you're going to work on 3, 6, 8 months ago, if it's still on the list and you haven't done it, maybe there's a reason why you're not doing it.
And P.S., do the second bullet, Mary, and then I'll come back.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about being intentional in our communication. Being intentional in our communication is being aware of our words, our tone, and our body language. So if you say something and you're doing it just with that horrible face and you're squinting and you just don't look happy, or worse, if you're communicating and you're using words that are not intentional, they can really hurt someone. So you need to be very aware and intentional. Think before you speak, act, and just be very mindful of what you're going to say and your body language.
So I'm going to intentionally acknowledge something. Elvin and I, our director, were talking about with you about why it's so hard for us to admit that we screwed up and made mistakes, which is a leadership and a life issue. My wife and I were having an animated discussion, otherwise known as an argument. So we were going back and forth, and I wasn't really thinking because I was very caught up in defending myself and winning the argument, which we don't actually win. And I said something, and I'm not going to say what I said because it was so terrible. I was the opposite of intentional. And then as soon as I said it, I wished I hadn't said it. And then when I saw her reaction, I realized how bad it was. And I said what I really meant to say was X, meaning if I had taken a breath, thought, and been more intentional, I would never have said what I said, and frankly, said what I wanted to say differently. I know this, and that's just not about Jennifer, my wife, and myself. It's about we get into an argument, we're in an intense situation, or it's emotional. We're not intentional. We're visceral. We're reactive, and it's not good. Third bullet point number 3, because I need to intentionally move on. Bullet point number 3, stay focused, aligning your actions with your vision. Mary, what the heck does that mean?
So often, if we are not focused, you just start to spin out of control. I always start my day off. I say I'm going to be passionate, I'm going to have perspective, I'm going to be focused. But toward the end of the day, when you start to, that tank's running on empty, you start to spin wheels, you start to worry about things. So by staying focused
That's right.
and intentional with your thoughts and your actions, so it is tied back to impact over activity, but it is more specific because you're being focused in everything that you're doing.
And that includes the fact that Mary knows that I've been having some issues with my vocal cords. Every morning, Mary, I told you, what do I practice every morning?
Breathing.
Not just breathing, my vocal exercises. I told you.
And your vocal exercises. And I said, even if though they sound ridiculous to you, they are making a difference. So you need to make sure to continue doing them.
The other day, I was doing them and my wife heard me and I didn't want her to hear me because I do them privately. And she said, are you talking to yourself? Because I have to use all these words. It doesn't really matter, but I intentionally try to practice it every day. How about this, Mary? I got this long to-do list. I have 12 items on my to-do list. Prioritize your to-do list. What does that have to do with intentionality?
Be intentional about the things on that list. Be intentional about the things I touched on it earlier, but this is being more intentional and putting a pin in it. We need to make sure whether it's a personal to-do list, a work to-do list, we want to be intentional. And also too, it ties back to being intentional what you're going to do about those items on your to-do list. If it means that you're going to delegate it, if it's in your home, you may want to delegate to a child or a spouse or a partner. If it's at work or there are items on your to-do list that you could intentionally delegate that other people on your team can help lift the load.
Stop with the to-do list with 50 items. Pick the top 2 or 3 that day. Next bullet, this is a great one. Build and sustain and grow meaningful relationships. A lot of times in my leadership coaching, often in my leadership coaching, when I talk about relationship building, people will say, well, my relationships are organic. And I say, they're organic. What do you mean? They just evolve? Yeah, they're organic. Yeah, they are and they're not. Translation, I believe, Mary, and you and I have been doing this work for years together, you need to be intentional. Meaning, you ever notice with a friend that you haven't spoken to in weeks, months, you have to intentionally reach out. You have to intentionally make plans to have a cup of coffee or dinner together. I'm
smiling because I called a friend the other day and she picked up and she goes, hello? And unfortunately, she thought something bad happened. And I'm like, I'm just calling to say hi. And because we usually text. And I said, I'm on a walk. I'm walking for an hour. I'm going to pick up the phone and say hello. That was intentionally building a relationship.
And along those lines, I will intentionally, and also it has to do with the people in your lives. I will intentionally say to my wife, Jennifer, after an argument, no, I'm joking, or anytime, Jen, let's go out this Saturday night. Because here's what happens if we don't. And look, it's not about going out, or not going out. Or intentionally staying home. Translation, don't just let life move forward without intentionally taking action to do the things you want to do. Or even be with your kids, spend time, whatever it is, be intentional. Next bullet, Mary.
Maintain positive attitude intentionally. It is not about things that happen to us. It is our response to the things that happen. So it is so important that we constantly check in on our own attitude. Why? Because,
Stay right there. Hold on. I want to intentionally ask you to do this. April, do me a favor. In the next studio next door in the library, there's a little stone they have that says gratitude, and I'll pick up Mary's point. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's all about being intentional, being grateful, and really making sure to focus on the good things in life, because it is awfully easier to focus on the things that are going wrong, spiral down that rabbit hole. You can't put your head in the sand and not address those things, but you want to make sure that you are maintaining a positive attitude because it is contagious for those around you.
This reminds me, I intentionally have this in the other studio. We have a library studio. I should have had it here today. I was not intentional. This says gratitude. Now, why we say, oh, you need to remind yourself to have gratitude? Yep. Why? Because if not, and if I'm on autopilot, the bottom line is I'll react to stuff that goes on in a way that's not productive, as opposed to deciding, as Mary said, intentionally to have a good attitude and also to have gratitude. Yeah, you got to remind yourself. Next bullet, Mary.
Yeah, we talked about delegate and micromanaging. I want to add to this one, though, coach and mentor those around you.
Left intentionally. Go ahead.
I got it. I am going to intentionally say, because we have one more tip after this one, but this one, when we talk about delegating, micromanagement, and coaching and mentoring those around you, be intentional about lifting up building your team and coaching and providing guidance to the people around you. And the last one, I'll throw it to you, Steve.
And you intentionally watch no, I'm just has nothing to do with anything.
And the Devils.
And yeah, I'm a Ranger. It's funny. I don't like hockey that much, but I root for I will admit it. I root for the Rangers. How about this one, Mary? Intentionally focus on wellness and lifelong learning. Intentionally reading certain books. Intentionally deciding you're going to take care of yourself, whether it's taking a walk, exercising, getting more sleep. You ever see people say, oh, I don't know where the time went, because you're not intentionally. Scarlett, do you intentionally set time aside to work on your fitness?
Sure.
Because otherwise, oh yeah, I lost the day. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to do that. Hey, but you're shaking your head as well. You intentionally do what? Work out on a regular basis. You do yoga too? Okay. I intentionally go to my Pilates class on Friday mornings.
And it's not just exercising. There's people watching. And me, I admit, I walk every single day, but that's about the peak of my exercise. My Peloton is just sitting there right now. But I intentionally do things that fill my life with joy.
And Mary, oh, yes, thank you. What is Elvin saying? Mine too? Okay, I don't even know what that means. Mary intentionally, when she walks from 5 to 6, oh, your Peloton.
Oh, his Peloton, Elvin's Peloton as well, is collecting dust.
Mary intentionally, when she walks every night, says intentionally, Steve, don't call me, don't talk to me. I don't want to deal with you. Leave me alone. I'm Steve Adubato. That's Mary Gamba, who's very intentional. We'll see you next time. This edition of Lessons in Leadership is made possible by the Vicino Leadership Institute at Seton Hall University, Prager Metis, Valley Bank, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, the North Ward Center, the New Jersey Sharing Network, Delta Dental of New Jersey, the Helix, Fedway Associates Inc., the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Choose New Jersey, and Seton Hall University, showing the world what great minds can do since 1856.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com. That's stand-deliver.com.
Promotional support for this edition of Lessons in Leadership with me, Steve Adubato, and my colleague Mary Gamba has been provided by NJ.com, NJBIA and New Jersey Business Magazine, CIANJ and Commerce Magazine, and the Meadowlands Chamber and Meadowlands Media.
Construction companies work at the heart of our communities. So do the operating engineers of Local 825, who build our roads and bridges and ensure the safe transmission of energy that keeps us on the move. Local 825 works with contractors as partners in quality, safety, and training. Our achievements stand as monuments to collaboration that will last for generations. This message has been brought to you by the members of Operating Engineers Local 825. Better building begins here.